Imagine you are a devout Christian monk. Your empire has completely fallen.
Right. Your whole world has just been flipped upside down.
Exactly. Your entire way of life has been upended by a new, powerful administration. And you are sitting down to write, the most important defense of your faith of your entire life.
But there's a massive catch.
Yeah, the catch is you are writing it using the language, the calendar, and the sacred texts of the very people who just conquered you.
It's just wild to think about.
It really is. So whether you're prepping for a theology seminar or trying to understand Middle Eastern history, or you're just insanely curious today, you are in for an absolute ride.
It's a scenario that it completely shatters how we normally think about history.
Oh, totally.
We usually expect the past to be full of these solid borders, a thick, heavy line drawn on a map with the Christian world on one side and the Islamic world on the other.
But today, we are dissolving that map entirely. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore a really fascinating academic paper by Claire Wilde. It's titled Christological Debates in the Hijri Mediterranean.
Yeah, and to unpack this mind-bendingly complex world, we're looking at a single, incredibly unique 12th century manuscript.
Right, Sinai Arabic 434. And through this one physical artifact, we're going to see how ancient cultures and religions didn't just clash. They blended, they borrowed, and adapted in ways that feel, honestly, incredibly relevant to how we communicate today.
What's fascinating here is the sheer historical paradox of this artifact. I mean, we have a devout Christian monk living in Jerusalem defending his specific Orthodox faith.
Yeah.
But he is building his argument using the Islamic Qur'ān, Greek philosophy, and Hebrew scripture. And he is writing the entire thing in Arabic.
It's amazing.
It really forces us to rethink everything we assume about how siloed these ancient communities supposedly were.
Oh, absolutely. Real quick, just a note before we really get into the weeds for you listening. We are going to be dealing with some deeply held religious beliefs today, theological polemics, and intense ancient debates.
Right, very heavy topics.
Yeah, and our goal here is absolutely not to take a side. We are certainly not endorsing any of these ancient theological views over another. We are simply exploring the brilliant, surprising, and just highly strategic ways these historical communities communicated.
Exactly. It's about the communication.
So let's set the stage. Before we can dive into the arguments inside this text, we have to understand the physical manuscript itself and, the heavily guarded world it lives in.
To do that, you really have to mentally travel to the southern Sinai Peninsula.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Picture the rugged, jagged landscape right near Jabal Musa. That's the mountain traditionally associated with the biblical burning bush and Moses receiving the Ten Commandments. And nestled right there is St. Catherine's Monastery.
Which is just an unbelievable location. Emperor Justinian established it way back in the 6th century. So that makes the world's oldest continuously used Christian monastery.
Yeah, but for our purposes, the most important detail is that it houses the world's oldest continuously operating library.
Right.
The sheer volume of history sitting in that desert is staggering. I mean, its collection of ancient manuscripts is second only to the Vatican.
That's insane, just sitting in the desert.
It is an absolute treasure trove. But the monks who guard it are famously and honestly, very understandably protective of who gets to look at these texts.
Oh, they are incredibly protective. And if you know the history, you completely get why. I mean, we have to mention the story of Constantine Tischendorf.
Oh, Tischendorf.
Yes. If you've never heard this, it is a classic 19th century archaeology nightmare. So Tischendorf is this scholar visiting St. Catherine's centuries ago, and he allegedly spots the oldest complete copy of the New Testament.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting in a basket of kindling, waiting to be burned. So he manages to, quote-unquote, borrow it from the monks.
Right, a borrowing that has conveniently lasted over 2 centuries.
Yeah, exactly.
That manuscript, which is known as the Codex Sinaiticus, is now sitting in the British Library in London.
Right, so when someone basically walks out of your house with a priceless, world-changing artifact under their arm, you tend to change the locks.
You really do. You can easily see why the monks might be a bit hesitant to just throw the doors open to outside researchers.
Yeah, fool me once, right? But occasionally the doors do open. Like in 1949, the Library of Congress actually got permission to microfilm some of the monastery's holdings.
And that project is what brings us to our core artifact today, Sinai Arabic 434.
Right. So physically, it's a collection of Christian homiletic writings, which is basically a compilation of sayings or sermons spanning 255 folios.
But there is a very specific 20-page section we care about.
Yes. The scribe who copied it noted the exact date he finished his work. And this is the major aha moment. He didn't just write June 11, 1139 CE.
No, he didn't. The manuscript is explicitly dated the 11 of Shawwal, 533 Hijri.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for those who might not know, the word Hijri refers to the Islamic lunar calendar.
Right.
It starts counting from the Prophet Muhammad's emigration from Mecca to Medina. So why on earth is a devout Christian monk using the Islamic lunar calendar to date his passionate defense of Christianity?
It seems completely contradictory at first glance.
It's like, think of it like when a small independent tech company is bought out by a massive multinational corporation.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Even if you manage to keep your old department and your specific team intact, you suddenly have to use their proprietary calendar software, right? You run on their fiscal year, you speak their corporate jargon just to get anything done.
Yeah, you have to adapt.
So does using this Hijri calendar mean these Christians were assimilating and just losing their unique identity? Or were they just being pragmatic?
That is the crucial tension of this entire period.
Yeah.
Adopting the language in the calendar didn't mean they were surrendering their identity at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In a Hijri environment, which is a term scholars use to describe societies fundamentally colored by cohabitation with Muslims, where Islamic political and administrative structures are completely dominant, adopting these tools was actually a brilliant survival mechanism.
A survival mechanism.
Think about the Jewish diaspora. When Jewish communities lived in Europe or Iran, they adapted to the local dress, they ate local food, they spoke the local language.
Right, but they remained distinctly, fiercely Jewish.
Exactly. Similarly, these Christians were using the tools of the dominant culture to build a fortress around their own theology.
Wow. So they were using the system to survive the system.
Precisely.
It makes you wonder how far this monk was willing to go to blend in. I mean, if he's using their calendar, does his actual writing adopt the tone of his Muslim rulers too?
Let's look at who is actually talking to whom in the specific manuscript to answer that.
Okay, so the text itself is framed as a dialogue. It's titled Questions and Answers, Rational and Divine.
Right. The author remains an anonymous monk, specifically a Melkite Orthodox priest writing from Jerusalem.
Okay.
And he addresses his entire text to a noble sheikh, a devout, inquisitive Muslim questioner.
And what immediately jumps out is the tone he uses. Because if you read other Christian polemics from this era, like the famous text by Abd al-Masih al-Kindi, they are incredibly harsh.
Oh, extremely hostile.
Yeah, they are sensational, openly hostile, deeply critical of Islam. But our anonymous monk goes completely the other direction.
He does. He is highly polite, deeply respectful toward the sheikh, and surprisingly reverent toward the Qur'an itself.
It's so unexpected.
He structures his defense meticulously, using two types of proofs, just as that title suggests.
Rational and divine.
Right. First, he uses rational proofs, which rely entirely on human logic, philosophy, and the natural world. Then he layers in divine proofs, which rely on scripture and revelation.
Rational proofs are incredible because he's trying to basically ELI 5, explain like 5, the Trinity and the Incarnation.
Which is not an easy task.
No. Those two concepts are massive stumbling blocks for Islamic theology. Islam strictly emphasizes the absolute indivisible oneness of God.
Yes.
The idea of God being three in one or God becoming human just doesn't compute in that theological framework.
Right. So the monk turns to the natural world. To explain the Trinity, he points to the sun.
The sun in the sky.
Exactly. He says, look up. The sun has its core essence, right? But it also generates light and it emanates heat.
Okay.
Those are three distinct properties, but they don't divide or change the single essence of the sun itself.
Oh, that's a really elegant way to explain it.
And to explain how Christ can be both fully human and fully divine without the two natures mixing into some weird third hybrid thing, he uses the analogy of fire existing inside iron.
Wait, like a blacksmith?
Exactly. When you heat iron in a forge, the fire and the iron exist together. The iron glows with the heat of the fire, but the iron remains iron and the fire remains fire.
Oh, they don't cancel each other out.
Exactly.
Okay, hold on, though. Something isn't tracking for me.
What's that?
Well, he spends this entire text being incredibly polite, right? Carefully walking this noble Muslim sheikh through these beautiful natural metaphors. But at the very end of the text, he suddenly pivots and just starts bashing Judaism. He calls it defective compared to complete Christianity. That feels completely out of left field to me.
It is a jarring shift.
Right. So given the intense power dynamics of the 12th century, Is this noble sheikh even a real person?
Yeah.
Or is the monk doing that classic historical maneuver where you attack a safe enemy like Judaism when you're actually trying to subtly critique the people who rule over you?
This raises an important question, and honestly, your radar for historical subtext is spot on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, historians strongly suspect this is exactly what is happening. The noble sheikh is likely a rhetorical framing device, a fictional proxy.
Okay. That makes sense.
You have to remember the terrifying diplomatic tightrope this monk is walking. He wants to prove the absolute ultimate truth of Christianity. Inherently, that means arguing against Islamic theology regarding Jesus. But he has to do it without committing treason against his Muslim rulers.
Because openly attacking Islam in 12th century Jerusalem
Could easily be a death sentence, exactly. Attacking Judaism, however, was a well-recognized, historically safe theological trope in that era. It allowed him to make his overarching points about the divinity of Christ without ending up in prison or worse.
Man, so it's the ultimate proxy argument.
It really is.
But regardless of whether the sheikh was a real guy or just a literary device, the way the monk argues his points is just nothing short of brilliant.
It's masterful.
If he is walking a diplomatic tightrope, his balancing pole is his incredible, borderline audacious use of his opponent's holy texts. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
He doesn't just quote the Qur'an nicely. He essentially weaponizes it.
Well, weaponizes is a strong word, but rhetorically it's very accurate. What sets this anonymous monk apart is his intimate, highly unusual familiarity not just with the Qur'an, but with tafsir.
Right, tafsir.
Yes. Tafsir is classical Islamic exegesis. It's the deep, scholarly commentary on the Qur'an. This monk isn't just surface reading. He knows the intricate, scholarly traditions of his Muslim rulers inside and out.
And he uses that deep knowledge to basically set theological traps.
Exactly.
For example, he wants to explain the incarnation, the Christian concept of God taking on human flesh. So he points directly to a verse in the Qur'an, Surah 42.51, which says that God only speaks to mortals from behind a veil.
Right.
The monk takes that verse and says, see, the human flesh of Jesus is simply the veil for the divine essence.
It's so clever. He even brings up the box thorn tree, which Islamic scholars identify as the burning bush from the Moses story, as another completely accepted example of God veiling himself to interact with humans.
And consider the implications of his translations, too, because he subtly tweaks Quranic wording to smuggle in his own theology.
Yes, the translation shifts are key.
There's a verse in the Qur'an detailing how Jesus heals the sick and raises the dead. The Qur'an explicitly states Jesus does this by my permission, meaning by God's permission.
Because in the Islamic view, Jesus is a mighty prophet, but he is still just a human acting on God's orders.
Right. But when the monk writes about these exact same miracles in his Arabic text, he changes the phrase just slightly. He writes that Jesus healed by the power of his divinity.
It is absolute verbal jiu-jitsu.
That's exactly what it is. He's not throwing wild punches at the Qur'an. He's using the Qur'an's own momentum, its own theological weight, to flip the argument entirely in favor of Christianity.
That is a phenomenal way to picture it. And the absolute pinnacle of this intellectual jiu-jitsu is how he handles Surah 2 of the Qur'an, Al-Baqarah.
Oh, the disconnected letters.
Yes. This chapter, along with several others in the Qur'an, begins with mysterious disconnected letters. Alif, Lam, Mim. For centuries, brilliant Islamic scholars have puzzled over what these letters mean. They are an interpretive mystery, a divine secret.
And our anonymous monk, sitting at his desk in Jerusalem, looks at these sacred Islamic letters and basically says, oh, I know what they mean.
Ah, right.
He argues that the letter Mim actually stands for Al-Masih, the Messiah.
So bold.
And because the very next verse in the Quran says, this is the book about which there is no doubt, the monk argues that the Quran is literally pointing its readers straight to the gospel.
He's looking at his Muslim rulers and claiming, your own holy book is telling you to go read about my Messiah.
That is just wow.
It is a remarkably audacious, sophisticated argument. He appears to even place the Quran among the books of God in his text, treating it as a valid proof text to establish Christian truth.
Which is unheard of.
And his synthesis doesn't stop with Islam. He pulls from everywhere. He brings in transliterated Hebrew writing out, I am who I am, Adonai Elohim, using Arabic script to prove the Trinity.
Oh, wow.
He even cites ancient Greek philosophers like Hermes Trismegistus and Socrates, treating them not as pagans, but as inspired sages pointing toward Christ. nice.
It's wild. It's like he has 15 tabs open on his browser at once.
Mm.
Greek philosophy, Hebrew scripture, deep Islamic commentary, Christian theology. He's just pulling code from everywhere to build this one masterpiece.
It really proves that knowledge in the 12th century Mediterranean wasn't strictly siloed. A single scholar could mine Islamic, Greek, Syriac, and Hebrew texts simultaneously. The intellectual cross-pollination happening in the shadows of these grand political conflicts is just staggering.
Okay, so on the surface, everything we've talked about looks like a masterclass in Christian-Muslim debate.
Right.
But Claire Wilde's paper reveals a massive plot twist.
Yes, it does.
If you look really, really closely at the specific Arabic words the monk chooses to use, you realize he is actually fighting a two-front war.
Exactly.
His biggest target might not be Islam at all. His biggest target might actually be other Christians.
To understand this twist, we have to rewind slightly to the historical background right before the Arab conquests.
Okay, set the scene.
The Christian Mediterranean was not a unified bloc. They were tearing each other apart over a theological debate that might sound like microscopic semantics today, but back then it was everything.
Which was, how exactly do you define the nature of Jesus?
Right. Our anonymous monk belongs to a group called the Melkites. The Melkites followed the Council of Chalcedon. They believed Jesus had two distinct natures, human and divine, and critically, two distinct actions or wills.
But not everyone was on board with the two natures idea.
Far from it. You had the Miaphysites, which included groups like the Coptic Christians in Egypt and the Jacobites in Syria. They heavily emphasized the oneness of Christ's nature.
Okay.
Again, to a modern listener, this might sound like an academic debate for a Sunday school class, but in the Byzantine Empire, theology was politics. People were exiled over this. There were riots in the streets. People died over how to describe the nature of Jesus.
And the Byzantine Empire, which ruled the Mediterranean before the Arabs swept in, back to the Melkites.
Yes, they did.
The Melkites were the VIPs. They had the emperor's favor, the funding, the elite status. But then the Arab conquest happened.
Everything changes.
Right. The Byzantine Empire is pushed out. And guess what? The new Muslim rulers do not care at all about the nuance between two natures and one nature.
Not even a little bit. To the new administration, anyone saying Jesus is God is missing the point entirely.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the Byzantine-backed Melkites lost all their elite status. The political playing field was completely leveled.
Wow.
All these rival Christian sects who used to riot against each other were now on equal political footing. They were all just minorities competing for the favor, the protection, and the administrative jobs of the new Muslim caliphate.
Oh, that's rough. If you've ever worked at a company that underwent a massive corporate merger, and suddenly the CEO's favorite department is stripped of its massive budget and put on the exact same level as everyone else, that is what the Melkites are feeling here.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a massive sibling rivalry. The Melkites and the Miaphysites are two siblings who used to fight all the time, with the Melkites always playing the favorite child.
Right.
Now they have a new, very strict step-parent, the Arab caliphate. The monk isn't just trying to impress the step-parent with his Arabic, he's trying to prove to the step-parent that his sect is the better sibling.
Exactly. And the linguistic proof of this sibling rivalry is hidden right in the text.
Where is it?
When the monk writes in Arabic, he specifically chooses phrases like two modes of action and unmingled and unmixed.
Okay.
This isn't generic Christian terminology. This is a highly specific, direct echo of a man named Maximus the Confessor.
Right. We have to talk about Maximus. This guy was a famous Byzantine theologian from centuries earlier.
Yes, he was.
He was so intensely committed to the idea that Jesus had two actions or two wills that when the Byzantine emperor tried to ban the debate just to keep the peace, Maximus flat out refused to back down.
And his dedication to those two actions cost him in the most brutal way imaginable.
Yeah.
Maximus was arrested, tried for treason, and exiled. But the punishment went further. He literally had his tongue cut out and his right hand chopped off so he could never again speak or write his theology.
Oh my God. Just horrific.
He died shortly after in 662 CE.
That is the level of political and physical stakes we were talking about. So when our anonymous monk is sitting in his room in Jerusalem, half a millennium later, meticulously writing about two modes of action
Ah.
in perfectly constructed Arabic.
He is invoking the ghost of a man who was mutilated for this exact belief.
Wow.
He is drawing a massive line in the sand against his rival Christians.
Unbelievable.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Mm.
Sinai Arabic 434 isn't just a polite theological letter, it is a profound survival mechanism for a displaced religious elite.
Yeah.
By translating dense, bloody Greek Maximian theology into elegant Arabic, the monk was asserting the absolute superiority of his specific Melkite sect. But he was doing it in the new universal language of the realm.
He's essentially saying to the Muslim rulers, we are the true logical Christians, and I can prove it to you using your language, your calendar, and your holy book.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from the ink and parchment of Sinai Arabic 434, we are looking at the sheer, undeniable scale of the anonymous monk's intellect.
It's staggering.
He took Greek philosophy, Hebrew scripture, Syriac concepts of the Trinity, and the Arabic Qur'ān, and he just wove them all into a single masterful defense of his specific worldview.
He did.
It's a powerful reminder that history is never as neatly categorized as the textbooks want it to be. The borders between us and them are always porous. Ideas are constantly bleeding across those lines, transforming both sides in the process.
And that ongoing transformation is what makes this manuscript so incredibly relevant today. The anonymous monk used the language, the calendar, and the sacred texts of a rival culture to articulate and defend his own deepest identity.
Yeah.
It forces us to look in the mirror. It makes you wonder, what foreign ideas, cultural norms, or even technological languages are you unknowingly using today to articulate your own deepest beliefs?
That's a great point.
Are your original thoughts truly your own, or are they just being shaped by the Hijri calendar of our modern era?
That is a phenomenal, somewhat unsettling question to leave off on. But we love that messy, tangled reality where the clean map dissolves and the real, complicated human story begins. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.